Welcome to Flyberry Studio, our creative house for ideas that feel fresh, fill gaps, and bring people together. So every month I sit down with two people I admire and we talk about things that people Google or ChatGPT late at night. We talk about work, identity, ambition, friendship, and all the messy stuff in between. We drink tea, we eat French snacks, we feel things, and yes, we record it. Goûter is a filmed live conversation in front of a small audience. This series is brought to you by Flyberry Events, the event agency I founded to create meaningful experiences on stage and beyond. It's tea time but bolder. If you want to see more of our videos, like and subscribe. Hi everyone! I'm so excited for everyone to be here. That's awesome. We have a room full of friends today, so thank you so much. So today's topic is, am I too old for a dream life? I feel like I know the answer already, but if that question has ever crossed your mind, even quietly, it means that you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And if you're just here to support this project and our speakers and myself, thank you so much. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
Hi, Emma.
Hi,
Welcome
Ali.
to Le Goûter.
Thank
How
you.
are you doing today?
I'm really good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful day in Vancouver. How can you not be feeling good today?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today. It means a lot. So we are talking about, am I too old for a dream life? So whether you're in your 30s, 40s, or beyond, I feel like this is a question that so many of us have asked ourselves at some point, right? So let's start with introductions. For anyone here in the room or watching at home who doesn't know you yet, when someone asks you, so what do? What's your answer? Let's start with you, Emma.
What I do is I change people's lives. I help women to get out of second guessing and self-doubt and to start living their dream life guilt-free.
Wow, inspiring. What about you, Helen?
I would consider myself a storyteller, and in the last few years, I have veered towards publishing to control the narrative of the stories of the business and entrepreneurs and people and personalities of BC and sharing those voices and their stories around the world.
Powerful, I would say. So if I had asked you the same question before you built your dream life, what would you have said back then?
If you had asked what do I do before I built my dream life, I would have said that I'd probably have given you my job title. That would have defined me. Yeah.
Okay, very telling. What about you, Helen?
I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years in Vancouver, so I would have said that I'm a small business owner in marketing and communications.
So you would have started with your title as well, right?
Yes. As a solopreneur, that's literally all you have to
Yeah.
hold on to.
Absolutely. So, I think it's one thing to take the leap and change your life, but it's another thing to actually enjoy it and make it work. So where are you today in your life? Start with you, Emma.
Oh, I am in such an amazing place in my life. I'm totally in love with my life. And as Helen said, how can you not be having a great day here, the sun shining in Vancouver? I'm living the dream and making it up as I go along as well, which is part of the fun, but really feeling like I'm the happiest that I've ever been in my life right now.
Okay, that's great to hear. What about you, Helen?
What was the question again?
I was saying, where are you in your life today?
I'm still in the process.
Okay.
My dream life hasn't quite materialized yet because I'm turning 60 this year. And I had always thought 30 years ago that I would be single until the end. There would be no retirement and that I would just constantly be going off on tangents, starting businesses, doing until I get bored and then keep rolling. But a few years ago, when I started getting into publishing, it hit it. I was just like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And we pivoted, my husband and I, and we are putting everything now into building that dream life so that I can possibly retire in 2 to 3 years. That's when I'm going to know when it's happening.
So what were you doing before publishing?
I was in marketing communications, but I primarily worked with small to mid-sized businesses building their digital foundations because they would come to me and say, oh, how do we do social media? And I'm like, you don't even have a website. You don't even understand how it works. Do you know where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Where's your network? Where's your database? Where's your CRM? And so we would have to go all the way back to the beginning and then build. So I spent years all through COVID and post-COVID helping everybody else build their businesses until they're in Whole Foods and they've got clothes, in retail stores across Canada. And then I just thought, I've spent all my time fearful of not being able to pay my bills, that I'm helping other people build when I should be building my business. And so we made some dramatic decisions and started focusing 100% on building out the publishing. And that's when things really took off.
Wow. And so even if you're in the process of building your dream life right now, are you enjoying your life at the moment?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
And I know you speak of happiness. I've never really had happiness as a goal. My goal is always to find my passion, which has eluded me that my whole life, is to figure out what that passion is. And now that I know that it's publishing and storytelling, now I'm working towards getting very happy.
Love it.
And so, Emma, what were you doing before?
I was working in various different roles in project management and leadership. And so, I loved coaching and mentoring and organizing and planning. And but I was definitely working far more hours than was healthy, and really lost myself and was not healthy at all. And so it was really a wake-up call to stop doing that and to change.
Okay, and you're happy now. That's what you were saying. You're enjoying it.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be on antidepressants and anxiety medication, and I'm not, and I haven't been for 5 years. So whatever I'm doing is definitely working.
It is working. Congratulations for whatever you're doing. So I feel like not always, but often when I hear stories of people who were no longer aligned with their lives, there were many signs along the way, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional, sometimes you need to take pills and, to go through the day. And I feel like they actually brushed off all these signs and kept going. And then one day it just became too much, right? Too much to carry. So help me understand, Emma, we'll start with you. How did it feel when you realized you weren't really enjoying your life anymore?
Yeah, it was definitely a slow burn process that I on paper, my life looked great, had like multiple houses, all the toys, overseas vacations. So I had everything that I should want, but I wasn't happy. And I was, as I say, still experiencing anxiety and depression. I was crying in my car on the way to work. I was then crying on the way home as well. And really asking myself, what's wrong? Why am I not happy here? And started journaling. I love journaling and working with a life coach as well. And allowing myself, when I started thinking about what I do actually want to do, to let myself have those thoughts, to think about like living a simpler life. And eventually I realized that I'd been trading what I felt was security and safety instead of being genuinely happy. And so it was a case of just taking that safety net away, because it wasn't really keeping me safe. It was going to slowly kill me. And yeah, I'm deciding I need to actually live my life for me, and instead of doing what other people said. So it was really that when I finally gave myself permission to not want this thing that I'd spent my entire life pursuing, that really was the pivotal part, was when I let myself actually choose for me.
So it was more a slow build up, right, of feelings rather than a single dramatic moment for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Helen?
You just forced me to go back to that moment. No. Now my hands are sweating because it brought me back to, we used to, when I was building the marketing communications company, I had a series of small clients that I had brought on board during COVID, just to help them keep afloat. And everybody was doing well. And we had a very senior rescue dog. And we lived downtown in the only building that would allow us to have a larger dog. And as she got older, I didn't realize how much time out of each of my day was spent moving her. She was immobile, and looking after her and tending to her and putting her in the cart and taking her back. And when she passed, I found myself in this tower in Yaletown with an extra 4 hours a day going, what do I do with myself? I was lost, and it was astronomical to live downtown for what I was charging my clients, but I knew I couldn't charge them anymore. And an opportunity came up for us to move outside of downtown into literally a band studio for half the rent, twice the space, 4 power outlets, and a sink that rocked when you used the taps. I was just like, do we take this chance? And I had an assistant at the time, and I said, you know what we're going to do? You're going to start your own little marketing social media company. I'm going to give you all these clients, and I'm going to divest of all of them. You go off to North Van, start your own business, and I am going to put myself in a position on the other side of town in this cold apartment with no heat, and I'm going to build this magazine. And it took the death of our beloved Snickers to really force us into this position where I had the courage to turn everything around for us. And we just started building from there. And I think we're going into year 3 and 4. And the amount that I've been able to grow and learn and just raise the income and raise everything that I've been doing has just been phenomenal. So once I let everybody go and told them they had to venture off, it was my time, that's when things really changed.
Wow, that must have been really hard for the death of your pet. And so one question that I have for you is that you said that your hands are sweating and everything. Do you want to share a little bit more about that moment, those 4 hours, you know, the extra hours that you had during the day? What did it look like for you? How did you feel at that moment?
It was just an emptiness. I didn't realize that because my day, it was like having a very small child. She had to be fed manually. You know, I had to lay on the carpet and feed her, and you know, and take her about. But it was also very much a part of our socializing. She was kind of a celebrity in the neighborhood. She'd put her in her diaper and put her in her cart and take her out, and everyone like, oh, get photos with Snickers, and you know, and it was this whole thing. And then suddenly all those sort of friendships dissipated very quickly, and I would be out on the street and nobody knew who I was. And it was a very weird identity loss at the same time as we don't need to live here anymore. We don't have an animal that is keeping us from being able to rent. So we started really having to reevaluate where I was going, because he's always been fully employed with a good job. So I always had that freedom to kind of, I don't know, like mess around, follow those tangents and everything. But I just thought, you know, this may be that opportunity where I've got to sit and do some thinking. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, this is where my passion lies. I know from working in all different aspects of publishing, from writing, publishing, digital, print, sales, concepts, my own columns, everything. I knew how to create a digital hybrid model that would make everybody happy. And that's why I thought I need to build this, because it doesn't exist right now. And that's what I started with.
Wow. Emma, you were talking about taking pills, antidepressants. So tell me a little bit more about that in that period of your life, if you don't mind. How did it look like from morning to night?
I actually, ever since I was a teenager until about 5 years ago, I was off and on antidepressants. Okay. And my daily life looked like being a people pleaser, trying to do things to make other people happy, trying to figure out what should I do differently for them to like me, asking permission for things. And yeah, so it was really just being some sort of a chameleon to try to get attention. And so what that looked like was different from day to day, but inside, what it felt like was horrible, just constantly in self-doubt and trying to figure out what am I doing wrong, what should I be doing differently. And so it was a lot. It was It was hard, and I'm really glad to not be in that place anymore.
I bet. So for you, it was a lot of doubts. For you, it was more the loss, I would say. But then you bounced back, right? So you decided to build your dream life. What was the scariest part of considering a change? Let's start with you, Helen.
I think we all have. I think the latest study that I've seen is like literally 99% of people have imposter syndrome. Like it's just normal. It's not a rare thing. When people say they have it, I'm like, yeah, who doesn't? It was that whole, I didn't go to university. I've never studied. I don't read. I don't listen to podcasts. None of those things. Everything is all self-taught. I've learned as I've needed to learn it, and I've taught myself using the internet. So I don't really know how other people do things. So when I'm trying to grow my business, I'm creating conversations with people that I'm finding online going, this person would be very cool to work with, this person will understand. And then how do you talk to them? Learning what the language is of the industry that you want to go into, how to go into that room and be accepted as having knowledge, even though it's not book knowledge or 10 years in corporate or 20 years or whatever it is. And so that's always where my anxiety was opening those doors. I could get in that room easy, but coming out of that room alive was always the fear.
So were you scared of disappointing people or?
I was scared of being stupid.
Okay.
Because when you work for yourself for so long, I have been in and off in a room in our home, either in the dining room or the bedroom, that's the office, building everything myself because there was never enough income to have somebody work with you. I had an assistant who was actually an intern through a fashion school that was working for, volunteering for like $10 an hour, a few hours a day, because she really wanted to learn. But other than that, there was always just enough to keep us afloat. So there was never a second opinion. There was never anybody pushing back. It was always my way or the highway. And it was always me just talking to me. So when you go into a room and there's 4 people at a table that they are publishing reports and studies on LinkedIn, and to go in and say, well, this is how I think this should be done. And then that kind of blank look. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm not using the right words. They're not getting this. And I'm like, I want the font to be squishy. I want it to be this way. And they're like, oh, there's a word for that. And I'm like, great, teach me. It doesn't mean that I don't know how to do it. I just don't know how to verbalize it. So once I got over that fear and got into those rooms and learned the language, it made it so much easier, because what I realized is I was bringing sort of uninfluenced ideas into the room, whereas everybody in that room had been working in a pod so much, there was never anything fresh. And that's what they needed me for. And that's when I went, there's value in this, having been solo for so long. And once you sort of tap into that personal strength, that you do have knowledge and that you're bringing fresh things to the table, then you learn how to monetize that.
You need to trust yourself at some point, right?
Yeah. It's that trust.
Yeah. What was it for you, Emma? The scariest part of considering a change? Sometimes it can be money, it can be judgment, as you said, and uncertainty. What was it for you?
Yeah, so what was really scary for me, as much as it was a slow burn coming up to the change itself, I essentially just decided to blow up my life overnight. I left my marriage, I left my home, I left my job. And so I had zero safety net support. My parents are deceased. I was just tore my entire life down to the studs and didn't know if I was going to be able to pay my bills, to feed myself, to feed my dog, but I just knew that I had to do it. So it was a major Band-Aid ripping off moment, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, you bet. So what did it take for you to walk away from the life you had built?
A lot of courage, a little bit of insanity, some support I shared with a couple of friends and was able to talk to them. But really just knowing that if I stay here and keep doing this, I am signing my own death warrant. It will kill me. And knowing that I had to choose me to turn things around. There was no other option. It really felt very life or death.
So very scary, very fearful moment.
Yeah.
So, Helen, you were saying that you were scared of looking dumb, or, you have the imposter syndrome. Whose opinion mattered most to you at that time?
It was my own.
Okay.
I didn't have anybody else. You see, he's in a completely different field. This is my husband in the front, in the black. He's very quiet and very stoic. So I would come in and vent and just like rattle off everything that went wrong with the day, everything that went right with the day. And he'd go, what's for dinner? And would not allow me to wallow, would not allow me to have that self-doubt. Was just kind of like, yeah, okay, this is the life that you've built. You are working it. Just keep going. It'll get better tomorrow. And that's just kind of how we've rolled. And it's worked. I've only recently, in the last year, met three young I call them young because I'm so old, but they're in their 30s. They're literally half my age, but they have almost the same philosophy as I do. And I was really surprised when I met them randomly at a PR mixer, and only because the one guy had a really cool hoodie on, and nobody else would talk to me. So I'm like, I'm going to talk to you. You look cool. And it turned out to be really, really well, because his life experience and mine. He is South Asian. He came from Alberta and just had a horrible upbringing. Mine was horrible. And so we kind of bonded over 3 hours, and we've crossed paths multiple times in the city. He introduced me to his business partners, and he said, we've stepped out of corporate. We've started this business and we want to work with you. How can we help you build? And I was just like, they do branding and marketing, automations, AI, like the whole thing. And I said, this is what I'm building. And if we can streamline it so that instead of taking 30 days to do something, it takes me 5, then I can multiply out what I'm building. And so over the last 6 months, we've completely reinvented my business. We're launching another new business, 3 new products, and they're finally people that I can trust, because I have had numerous people in the last 30 years come in, all what I know now, very narcissistic personalities that saw something that they could take from me and then destroy me and then walk away with everything. And I just thought, this is not happening again. So I never let anybody in. These 3 guys have literally changed our lives. And I'm trusting. And now this is how I know I'm going to build my dream life, because they believe in me and I believe in them. So there's 4 of us now building. And that's going to allow me not to work until I'm 100 years old.
So do you still have the imposter syndrome?
No, I think it's almost gone. It's almost gone. Yeah. I know it sounds cliche to say, but I've really found my power in the last year.
Well, it's not cliche, it's beautiful, actually, to say. For you, Emma, it was a dramatic change. It was very big, and as you said, it was like maybe you felt lonely, if it's a word that you would use. No?
It was, well, it was during COVID, and so it's a great time to move because you don't get to meet anyone because everyone's being told to stay in their bubble. It was really lonely. And it's funny, Helen talking about her dog. I had a little dog then. My dog is gone as well. But if I didn't have my dog and taking him to the park and being able to talk to other people walking their dogs, yeah, I think it would have been much more lonely. I also started working at the local yoga studio, and so that gave me some community and connections. But the first year was very lonely. It was tough. I did definitely feel alone. And there are still times that I feel alone, but then I remind myself that there's, like anything, there's pros and cons, right? So I choose to live alone. And that means that when I go to the cupboard, the chocolates that I left in the cupboard are still exactly where I left them. You know, I get to have things how I want. I don't have to ask anyone about our budget. It's, yeah, so like anything, there's kind of messy, but do what makes you happy.
And did anyone in your life try to talk to you, or try to talk you out of it when you did that big change?
No.
Okay.
Interestingly, most people were sort of like, yeah, I could see that there were issues. And so it's funny that friends will sit back and not call out when they feel that there's something wrong in a relationship. But then when the relationship breaks down, they'll say like, oh yeah, no, you guys weren't right. So maybe like if you do see that with a friend happening right now, maybe lovingly have that chat with them.
But don't you think sometimes it's actually difficult to have that chat with that person because these people are maybe like very in love and don't want to listen?
Being honest is hard. We are in a system and a society where we are encouraged to not to hurt other people's feelings or to, say the right thing at the right time. Whereas instead, if we were actually honest with ourselves first, and then whatever you have to say to someone else, if you're doing it from a good place and with kindness, they have the choice to receive that information and to do what they want with it.
That's true. Helen, when you finally decided to move forward, what helped you most? Was it having a plan, someone who supported you, or a deadline?
I think that's too vague.
Mm-hmm.
I don't create timelines. I don't. I just get up every morning and make a list of what needs to be done,
Okay.
and then that will determine what happens the next day. And so, if I'm looking at the end of the month that this part of what I'm doing is moving very quickly and very smoothly, then I will look at, are these other things bringing revenue? Are they bringing happiness? Are they bringing any kind of satisfaction? Are they going to be able to grow? And if I go, no, 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 then it's time to cut. There's no committee. There's no anybody in the office that I've got to run that by. It's just me. And I usually take, I build over the course of the year. And when it hits December and things start really slowing down and everybody starts going away for holidays, that's when I actually sit down and triple my work, because I go over everything that we've done in the previous year. I look at all the results, and that's when I pivot my business. So I always say, we're going to start a new business in January, or we're going to cut this and take this one aspect and move forward. And so if I look back on my history, literally every January I start something new. And then I run with it for a year and I see if it's going to work out. And I started my first magazine in a January, right before COVID. And I just sort of come to the end of my tether with the magazines that I was writing for. I had a tip that a haute couture designer from France was coming to Vancouver for a very private trunk show for 8 of the wealthiest women in the city. And I had an invite to come and observe this. And I just thought, this is a great story for these luxury magazines. And I pitched them. And instead of saying, oh, yes, we need this, they went, well, who's going to buy an ad? And I went, what do you mean who's going to buy an ad? I give you the story. You sell the ads on the other side to stores like Holtz or whoever wants that client. And they're like, yeah, that's not how it works. And I went, oh, I can't hear that again. So he said to me from the top floor of the condo, he's just like, why don't you just effing start your own magazine and stop bitching? And I went, yeah, you know what? You're right. And so I spent that December learning about online platforms, how to design magazines, how to write, how to lay it out, and figured out what it would look like, and launched it in January to my marketing communications newsletter list that I had. That was about 8,000 people. And everybody was just like, where can we get this? And I said, it's digital, shareable. You don't have to buy it, it's free. And it just blew up. So every month then I just took everything that happened in the city that I was privy to, wrote my own story, took my own photos, put it into this template, and just shot it out. And now my database is approaching 100,000. Two licensing deals with Asia for my luxury content, and complimentary international travel for the magazine. So that one gives me the happiness in life. It doesn't pay me anything because nobody pays to be in there. But I was able to start the subsequent titles that are monetized, that I'm building the business with. but it's the first magazine that gives me the most amount of pleasure.
Congratulations for these achievements. So I guess having a list helped you a lot, right? Like you're a list person.
Yeah.
So then you know how to go with your day.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, whatever doesn't get done, I write on to the next page, and I start my day with that. And if it never gets done over a course of a week, I would say, is that really a priority if I did not bump it to the top of the list?
So do you do the same with your personal relationships? If it doesn't bring value to your life, you're like, maybe I shouldn't talk to that person anymore.
Well, this is kind of a little bit embarrassing. I actually only have 3 friends. This is Jess Singh. She's a novelist in the city here, and she's one of my newer friends. But I have a great deal of admiration for her, and I find that I bond with people that are just as driven. And she's very new to the game, and hopefully I'm helping her along the way. But it's me and him against the world.
You seem like a fantastic husband. So Emma, if you had to name one thing that made the difference between staying stuck and actually changing, what would it be?
It's really mindset. And I think that, that is our most powerful tool. When you make up your mind, when you decide to do something, that's the shift, and that's the secret ingredient with everything. Like when Helen decided, okay, I'm going to take my husband's advice and just start my own magazine. When you decided, I'm going to start a podcast.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
It's really about you taking the steps to make it happen, and taking like little baby steps, letting it be, as I said earlier, let it be messy. Just, I have a saying, like, do it anyway. Like, anyway. It can be messy. Just do it. Yeah, really.
So I think this is the part where many people get stuck for a long time, not knowing what the next step should be. Helen, how did you know, when you made your list, how did you know which steps to take? Was it baby steps? Was it a big jump that you did?
Oh, I'm more of an all-in within 24. I like everything to have a 24-hour turnaround. I don't like things that take forever. And that was every once in a while over the last 30 years, somebody would come to me and say, you know what, we have this really great client that's in the diabetes field and you should go work with them. And suddenly there was a group and there was a caucus and then there was like this and this. And it took 3 months to get a social media post approved. And I was like, I'm firing everybody. Like, I cannot work like this. If I'm not done by 5 o'clock, I'm done. And so I just literally will wake up in the morning and be like, I'm starting a new magazine. And then I just research it, figure out what's going to go in there, how am I going to distribute it, and the rest just follows. It's more of that very much, build it and they will come approach. And if they don't come, well, then obviously nobody knows about it and you got nothing to be embarrassed about. So I just keep doing it until, something sticks. And that's kind of, I always say that, an opportunity drops in your lap every day. It's up to you to realize it and then decide what you're going to do with it. You can either keep it for yourself or you can give it to somebody. And that's how that's sort of my business philosophy. And that's what allows me. I have friends that are in corporate jobs that they reach out every couple of years and be like, wow, you're still working for yourself? They're just like, I could never get up in the morning not knowing if I was getting paid. And that's when I realized that this is why I didn't work in corporate, because for me, it wasn't about getting paid. It was about, I would go into an office and I'd be like, well, that filing system needs to be redone and that needs to be redone. And this could be more efficient. And they'd be like, you can't do that. That's not the way it's done. And I'm like, but it's not working properly. And then I was just like, then they'd be like, you need to go to the mailroom. Just go over there for a while. And so then I'd go into the mailroom and I'd be like, this could be so much more efficient. And so it was, when you're working with other people, you're always on their schedule. I can make a decision in the middle of the night and just start implementing it by 7 o'clock in the morning. And I only have to answer to myself. There's nobody else. There's no children. There's no pets. There's just me and him and the rent. And so it allows me to have a lot more freedom, a lot more creative freedom than most people.
Absolutely. A lot more creativity. And What about you, Emma?
It was definitely it was probably a mixture. I mean, obviously, like the big jump was leaving, and then I spent a lot of time journaling, meditating, figuring out what I actually wanted, and then thinking about, okay, well, if I want to be a yoga teacher, what do I do? So I took my yoga teacher training. But I think for me, it's always about having a goal. Like I like to say that you need to fight to train for. So if you have a goal somewhere that you want to be, my goal this year is I'm going to hike the Great Divide Trail, which is 1,200 kilometers along the Rocky Mountains in the wilderness. So, now I know I've got to take all these micro steps towards that. So figuring out like my boots and my food and things like that. And so you need to have like a big, exciting dream that makes you want to get up in the morning. And what that looks like for you can be anything. But then once you have that thing, then that helps you keep motivated each day by doing the little steps towards it to actually make it happen. So it's a bit of a combination.
Yeah, a bit of a combination for sure. I think that as human beings, we naturally feel safer with what we know and recognize, right? So jumping into the unknown is not easy. For some, it's exciting, but for others, it can be terrifying. But I believe that once you gather, the courage and become more aware of yourself and take in the right information, like you need to be like to take the right information as well, there is a reward, right, on the other side. Looking back now, what was easier than you expected and what was harder than you expected?
Oh, what was easier than I expected and what was harder than I expected? It actually, staying true to myself when my self-doubt came up and started saying like, are you sure? What are you doing? That was definitely hard. Again, that people pleaser part of me and questioning. But what turned out to be easier than I thought was actually just changing my life completely, letting go of being materialistic, letting go of being identifying myself by my corporate success, and starting my own business and being able to help other people. It was much easier than I thought to shift from the very masculine energy that I'd been working in to working in a very feminine energy, to allowing myself to take the time in the morning for my self-care. And that is a big part of why I'm no longer needing the anxiety and depression medication, because I actually intentionally create the time for self-care. And that turned out to be much easier than I thought it would be. So damn, I wish I'd done that sooner.
That's really good. What about you, Helen?
The question really doesn't resonate with me, because I get up every day taking risks. I've been like this for so long. There never was that moment. Like even moving from EL Town to Commercial Drive into a newly painted band space, it was just something that I did to facilitate everything else to move forward. So I learned a long time ago in various situations before I moved out here, and once I was here for the first 10 years, that no matter what bad things happened, somehow I always came through it. There was always something that dropped into my lap. And that's when I think I started recognizing opportunity. Whereas, like when you're first in the city and you don't know anybody and you're working at a bad job and you get fired and you got nowhere to live because you get evicted because you have a cat they didn't know about, and you're just kind of like walking down the street and someone says, hey, what are you doing? And you talk, and then suddenly there's an opportunity. A lot of people would just not see that opportunity because they were just so inside themselves with, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. They can't get out of it. But I was always like, this is not who I am. What was that? What were you saying? I know how to work this. And just sort of kept rolling from there. So now there's really nothing that can knock me to a place where I need to make that kind of hard, soft decision. It just seems so normal to me. So I really can't come up with any scenario.
No, that's totally fine. And so, did you feel with that big change that you lost anything along the way? People, maybe, or a part of you, or not at all? You feel like you just gain everything?
There wasn't any people.
Okay.
So I've always had him. We've been together for almost 20 years now. And if anything, it was never losing anything. It was always finding a part of me that I didn't know existed. Just that next layer of courage, that next layer of, I didn't know that I knew that, and I can apply that to this, and this is going to help us in the long run. I'm always thinking 5 minutes ahead and 5 years ahead. So if something isn't going to work well now, I think, is this going to benefit me 5 years from now? And if that means going to an event or creating an association with someone. I said, like, I only have 3 friends, but I have about 10,000 associates. So it's like, you always have to keep everybody at the end of your fingers, because you never know when you're going to, like when earlier you were saying, we talked to this guy and he got us mics, and then he also knew somebody who did this. Having that, just keeping a small thread with literally everybody that you cross paths with is so valuable, because it becomes your network. As you're growing and becoming more successful, then it allows you that opportunity to reach out and pluck people who haven't quite found their way yet, and give them advice and give them guidance and help them grow, so that they can then work with you. And that's kind of a process that I do year after year, because I'll be like, I knew somebody 20 years ago that did this. I'm going to find them on LinkedIn. And then we reconnect, and it's like nothing is passed. So it's for me, it's not about losing, it's always about refinding.
What about you, Emma?
Yeah, there was definitely things that I lost, but I would say that they needed to be. They lost. You kind of, the whole Marie Kondo thing, like, is this bringing me joy? No. So we're going to leave that behind. And what I gained, I gained some really, really valuable lessons in what's important to me. I gained like a new understanding of how I could live my life completely differently. So instead of fitting into the mononormative societal expectations of get married, get a job, blah, blah, instead, like, I opened my eyes to, well, what could life look like? And ended up discovering polyamory, and now I get to live on my own but have wonderful, amazing partners that I share my life with. So I have gained so much more than I lost.
That's very reassuring from both of you, actually, that you got more than what you expected, I would say, and you didn't lose anything, but you refined. For anyone who feels stuck, who want to change and feel stuck, what would be your advice now?
That it's okay. You're not alone. We've all been there at some point, and we will all be there again at some point, because we're human, and that's how life works. But to take heart, take courage, take some time to think about what you want to change, why you want to change it, so that you can then be grounded in your truth, instead of making a change because you think you should. We're in the new year. So many people are like, I should go to the gym because I need to lose weight. It's like, well, do you? Is that actually what you want to do? What do you want to do? And then to ask yourself, what is the smallest step, the teeny tiny smallest step that I can take towards making that change? And all those tiny little steps, they add up. And last year I walked the Camino de Santiago, right? 800 kilometers in 31 days. And I did that one single step at a time. And that's how we achieve all the amazing things. You achieve a publishing empire, your podcast. It's all by doing one little thing towards that fight that you're training for.
How did it go, by the way, that trail?
The Camino was amazing. It was incredible. I was in Spain and Portugal, and so got to eat so many delicious things and drink wine, and I loved just getting up and walking all day. Really nice to let go of your email and your pressures, and really simplify your life down to eating, walking, sleeping.
Yeah. That's beautiful. What about you, Helen? Any advice?
Oh, it's so opposite. This is why Emma does what she does. Because for me, when somebody comes to me and says, when I find myself stuck, I take an accounting. I get sticky notes out and I write on every one of them, these are all the things that I do very, very well. These are all the things that I don't do well. These are all the assets that I have. And these aren't physical things like cars or whatever, because we own nothing. We're very nomadic. But the assets, my network, my database, my skill sets, put all of that down and then look at it and just say, how, if I was not me, third party and looking at this, what would that look like? And if somebody else would be like, well, your strengths are actually here, here, and here. And if you pair it with this is the new business. This is where you should be moving towards. This is something that the public want. You can charge $200 an hour for this. This is where you should be going to. And just taking that accounting of what you're bringing to the table, to me, is a very valuable thing. And this is something that I do every December when I break down all my businesses. I'll say to him, go into the accounting, the physical accounting. How much did I make last year? What was my most expenses? And what was the profit on all these different revenue streams and products? And if the one thing that I spent most of my time doing brought me the least amount of money, well, how is that going to benefit us? And we also are very involved in animal and human rights around the world. And the more I make, the more we can donate. And that is one of my goals, is to create an incredible amount of wealth so that I can make as much change as possible in the lives of animals and shutting down zoos and circuses and all these things. You can't do that with petitions only. You need money in today's society. So I can't just keep making free magazines. So I need to figure out how to monetize, how to productize, and then sell it, wean my way out so that I can focus on the things that I really, really care about. So getting to that point takes that accounting every year, because that accounting will tell me if I'm putting my time into the most valuable places for returns, either emotionally, for satisfaction, and for revenue.
So very practical. Okay, I think we're gonna open the floor to our audience. If anyone have any questions for our guest. Yes?
I'd love to ask you both same question. What does ultimate success look like through your eyes? But I'm guessing there's going to be two different answers. Just curious.
I don't want this to sound egotistical, but it is for to be rich and famous, because in how we're living now post-COVID and how the world is, nobody listens to you unless you are rich and famous. And so until you build that platform where you can actually put your money where your mouth is, and to be able to make change using the platforms that are available to us, you have to have that audience and you have to have that power. So every day, that is one of the things that I'm striving towards, is how to create that, not because I want to be on billboards and on TV and everything, but I want to be able to take that acclaim and that money and make positive change and make lives better for smaller people that are coming up. That's how I will know that I am successful, when I'm not working and when I'm 100% following my passions of doing good in the world.
Yes, so you're right. Completely different. Not to make yours wrong in any way, because we each get to define our own version of success. But for me, in terms of my business and my work, which as a solopreneur, as you mentioned, they're kind of intrinsically linked. But success in my work is helping women to find that confidence to do what they want to do. And so each woman that I help to feel better about herself, that's success. In terms of personal success, it's having less stuff, more time, getting rid of things, just taking my backpack and walking 70 days across the Rockies. That, to me, having created that space in my life so that I could take 2 months off last year for the Camino, that I'm going to do the same again this year, that is success to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll ask just, how do you think age played a factor in your decision to go for your dream life, if at all?
Oof. Do you need to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think it did. So I'm 49. I was in my mid 40s when I decided to blow it up, and I think that just having reached that level of maturity, and you see these jokes about how, like, as women get into their 40s, they're just like less F's given. And it really was. It was kind of like, you know what? I'm done with this. I have to start changing, and maybe as well seeing that time's running out. Like, you know, I have what, like, you know, I don't know, like 30, 40 years to go. Am I going to keep doing this? Or do I want to take the rest of my life and actually do what I want with it? So I would say it played into it in like running out of time in a sense of urgency, but also in that maturity to be able to make those tough decisions. Yeah.
For me, because I didn't follow traditional role, I didn't get out of high school, marry my high school sweetheart, start a home, have the children and all of that. For me, I knew I was always going to have to hustle. And I had hoped at some point to meet somebody that I would spend the rest of my life with. But as I've gotten older, and now, like I said, that I'm almost 60, you have so much life skills behind you. You know that you don't sweat the small stuff anymore. There's absolutely no point about worrying about little things. And once you have that kind of realization that we live in a country and in a city where there's so much opportunity and there's so many nets that will catch you if you fall, that you got to try really, really hard not to be comfortable here. And I have always been able to bounce back and solve those problems quickly. And if once you sort of develop that problem solving skill, when something comes to you and it just kind of hits you as a whammy, like last November I had breast cancer, and then 3 weeks later I didn't, because I had the surgery and it was done. And I was like, done, got that out of the way. I'm going back to work now, because you kind of get to that age where you're like, I'm kind of unstoppable, because it's like everything that could possibly happen to you has already happened. So you know how to deal with it. If I was in my 20s or 30s and I got fired and evicted in one day, then you'd be like, I'm going to be on the street. I'm going to go to the bar and drink everything in my bank account and then end up living with some strange guy, which seems to be, you know, a really rational option when you're that age. But now I know that that's ridiculous. Now I know that there's resources, there's women's centers, there's, you know, how to get a temp job and find an affordable Airbnb in the suburbs. Like, there's so many different ways that you can solve your problems now that just don't involve irrational kind of knee-jerk reactions. So if you think 5 minutes ahead and 5 years ahead when you're making your decisions, nothing is really going to stop you from building what you want to build. And that's kind of, I get out of bed every morning and just be like, where are we going today? How soon are we going to get there? And then what are we going to do with the money we make? And it's like sitting down with him every quarter and being like, where are we? Are we any closer to that? And if we are, then it's just like, yes, let's go for pizza. Like,
Any other questions?
I'll ask, what habit do each of you do every day that contributes to your success or will contribute to it?
Okay, so for me, it's really simple, and it's a gratitude practice essentially, and I do it every morning and every night. And it's called the rose, thorn, and the bud. So you ask yourself, what's my rose? What was a highlight of my day today? What was a thorn? And that's a challenge that I overcame, because seeing like how resilient you are and how capable you are is really helpful. And then your bud is, what are you looking forward to tomorrow? And that is really helpful as well, because if you don't have a bud for tomorrow, you get to create one. So maybe that's like you make a coffee date or something. So yeah, just doing the rose, thorn, bud every morning and every night really helps me to stay grounded and positive and be able to show up for my clients and for myself. Yeah.
for me, it is waiting 15 minutes before answering an email. Because the first thing in the morning, because I go from the bedroom to the kitchen to the office, all in 5 minutes. So the second I wake up, I'm at work. And when you open your email and there's a whole bunch there, that tendency to want to panic very quickly. Something is here that you weren't expecting, somebody's pushing back. And if you jump on and try to convince them that they're wrong and that what you were saying was right, which is sort of the old approach that I had years ago, I'd be like, no, it has to be done this way. Now, if I sit back and I look at it and I say, why are they pushing back? What are they trying to accomplish with this? If you try to understand the other side of it, how can I solve this problem before it starts? Then you can write it, put it into GPT and say, make this warmer, nicer, and more understanding. Put it back into the email and then send it, and the problem never materializes. And that is the practice that I have been using for the last year, to give me peace of mind, knowing that not only is it solving my problem before it exists, but also making them feel better about their choices and very softly guiding them into an understanding of why they made a knee-jerk decision based on something else. And by doing that first thing in the morning for the first hour, cleaning the email out, it allows you that peace of mind for the rest of the day to get your work done.
Any last question?
Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give to the 30-year-old son?
Don't get married. I've done it twice. I'm not doing it ever again.
I had always said, no kids, no marriage. Just actually, when I was younger, I wanted to be like Elizabeth Taylor. I wanted to have like 8 to 10 husbands, just try them out, do the alimony thing. My mom was very big on marrying for money. This was embedded in my head. So I always thought that was a really good idea, but there was never an explanation of the emotional toll that would take on you. So I had just always been by myself in the city. And it wasn't until I actually went on a last minute vacation, ended up in Greece, got sick, could not fly back when I was supposed to. So I ended up starting a business, underground, of course, writing English for somebody, and ended up staying for a few months where I met him and realized the only way that we could actually date was if we got married, because you can't stay in another country and, for years. So we applied, and it took 1.5 years to get married, but that was the only reason. So I've always seen him not as a husband for the first many, many years. He was my boyfriend, because there was no proposal. There was none of the song and dance, none of the lean up, none of the lead up, no family involvement, nothing. It was just him and I standing in a hallway doing the ceremony in Greek and then going home and making dinner. But it allowed us to really come together. And just when we came back to Canada, I had to reevaluate how to live here. I went single. I came back with a husband, 2 dogs, and 2 cats, and was in the suburbs. And I was just kind of like, how is this my life? Like, what happened in the last 5 years? But it was the best thing that happened. And it was that sort of last minute trip to help somebody else with their problems. So that's what I mean when I just say, an opportunity falls in your lap every day. What you do with it, how you respond, can lead to so many things. And it led me to meeting him, who has been my absolute rock. And we've just been the two of us together. So I would say to my 30-year-old self, just stop trying to fit into what society wants you to be. Don't follow the path if it doesn't work for you. Figure out what your path is, and somewhere along the way you will find your person, and everything will grow from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Emma and Helen, for this insightful conversation. So I guess we can all agree, am I too old for a dream life? The answer is no, never too old. So before we wrap up, do you have any thing that you would like to recommend to our audience? It can be a book, a person, it can be a podcast, anything that you would like to share.
Yeah, I would recommend, can I pick more than one?
Sure.
Because being polyamorous, I can't pick one thing. I couldn't pick between the croissant and the pain au chocolat. So I would say on YouTube, or on Vimeo, there's a video called Slow-Mo, Slomo. Watch that at least once a year. It's this incredible guy who basically gave up a life of being an incredibly rich doctor with a mansion, and now he lives in a studio apartment and rollerblades on the boardwalk in Santa Monica, and is happier than he ever was. So watch that at least once a year. And then a lovely little book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. And it is about a seagull who loves to fly. And it's really a story about doing something that you love to the best of your ability, just for the pure joy of it, and then sharing that love and that passion with other people.
Thank you, Emma. Helen?
I think right now I would recommend watching a lot of AI cat videos.
Yes.
That is what's getting me to sleep every night and making me go to bed smiling, especially the drumming on the patio at 2 a.m. videos, and serving French fries and eating them. And drinking beer was the one this morning. I think they're hilarious. But otherwise, to me, that brings so much more joy to me than any of those other things.
I love it. I love it. Didn't know of AI cat videos. I can't wait to check them out.
Well, we'll show you one before we go.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, really. Thank you to our audience for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. So this is the end of our podcast. Thank you, everyone.